Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be reacting to...
What is the genetic map of Europe?
What is the genetic map of Europe? Now in this video, we're going to tour the European continent through the lens of
What does that
genetics,
mean?
looking at the different genetic markers.
I have no idea, but we're about to find out.
Is it like, you know how those people, when you spin in the tube and you send it, they do ancestry.com? They do your ancestry?
Yeah, I guess.
Oh.
In different areas of the continent, seeing the similarities and the differences across regions. And let's start in Southeast Europe. What do we know about the Y-DNA haplogroups and the mitochondrial haplogroups in this part of the continent? Now, quickly for reference before we get into the details, in this video I'm going to focus on the main genetic markers, the main haplogroups in different parts of the continent, as opposed to listing all the
Remember, we did do one video specific about Greece.
Green.
Yeah, but
I learned nothing.
I learned nothing. I don't feel that was a good video. That video, because they didn't show nothing. They just talked a bunch and they showed a bunch of AI images.
Yeah, I was so
haplogroups
sad
in
about
these different
that.
parts of the continent. I'm going to focus on the main ones. With that being said, and if we start on the Y-DNA side, I2A1 is the most common paternal haplogroup in many parts of Southeast Europe, at around 20 to over 50% broadly speaking. It is the most common Y-DNA haplogroup in countries like Bosnia and Herzegovina, with I2A found in around 50 to 60% of Bosnian men. As far as the origins of this haplogroup, I in general is the oldest major haplogroup in Europe and probably originated on the continent. The subclad I2 is thought to have branched off around the time of the last glacial maximum, which lasted from around 26,000 to 19,000 years ago.
Wow.
Populations carrying I2A were forced into refugees in
Wow, how
southern
pretty.
Europe around this time, and this concentration in the Balkans area has continued until today. Now, another common Y-DNA haplogroup in this region is EV13 at around 10 to 40%, which is a subclad of the broader E1B1B.
Oh,
It is the most common
listen,
E1B1B.
I can already tell. I'm not gonna do anything for this video.
This video is a little too.
It's too technical. What's E1B1B? Tell me what it means. Maybe blue eyes. Like, okay, you know what would be real cool?
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
T would be like, okay, you tell me all the blue eyed people, are they related? If so, tell me how.
I do agree that instead of just using these specific terminologies, he should like at least
the
give
normal
a little
girl.
Yeah, what does that mean? Because okay,
From Miami.
E1 B1
I
B
don't know what
cool, but
E1B.
what the fuck does that mean? Like, I mean, I get it that what he's trying to say they're all related in that region. I mean, okay, but I didn't need the video to know that. Like, I kind of thought there would be more like, what does that mean?
Yeah, what are the genetic markers?
Lineage in Europe, particularly high in the Balkans, in Greece and in Albania. EV13 is believed to have originated in the Neolithic period, say around 7000 to 6000 BC, and has deep historical.
I guess the only thing he gives the dates a little, so like at least you can kind of see where the first settlers were, and it's in Greece. Cool, we get it, we knew, but still, like I'm gonna forget which were which because these random number letter wars. I don't know.
Connections to early farmers, Indo-European migrations, and ancient civilizations like the Illyrians, the Thracians, and the Greeks. EV13 descends from EM78, which likely originated in Northeast Africa or the Levant around 20,000 years ago. JI2 is another quite common haplogroup in Southeast Europe, found in anywhere between around 5 and 40% of men, depending on the area. It is especially high in countries such as Greece, the island of Cyprus, as well as Turkey, with part of Turkey in Europe. It is also pretty high in Italy, but I will go into more depth on Italy later in the video.
I think that settles the conversation to Turkey is to be included part of the EU, because every time everyone says it's not part of the EU, but it's well, not the EU, it's part of Europe.
Section of this video. JI2 is strongly associated with the early spread of agriculture, and it likely originated in the Near East.
You know, also what's interesting about genetic maps, if you could figure out their diets, you can realize what foods go with you, what makes you sick. Because what I've learned, for me, I'm kind of sensitive to milk, and supposedly I think my family is probably from New Guinea or somewhere in that area, and the people in that area, they do not have milk as a part of their regular diet.
1,000 years ago. Now, another two Y-DNA haplogroups worth noting in this region are R1A at between 10 and 30% and R1B at between 5 and 20%, with both of these haplogroups associated with the Indo-European migrations from the steppe that began around 3000 BC. A subclad of R1B called Z2103 is a particular variation of R1B found in this region. Now, if you're enjoying this video, please consider subscribing. So we've seen some of the main Y-DNA haplogroups in Southeast Europe,
But you know
but
what
what
I've
about the
heard?
maternal
It's
side?
also been quite sketchy to submit your information to those ancestry.com. I don't know.
No, what they're gonna do with it?
Yeah, you don't know what they're gonna do with it. If they're gonna program you into a system, and then next you know you wake up in the middle of the night.
Okay, now you're doing too much.
Mitochondrial sides. Well, H is the most common mitochondrial haplogroup in Southeast Europe, at around 40 to 50% of the population. Different subclads of H are present in this region, namely H1 and H3, but also clans like H5 and H7. Haplogroup H likely originated in Western
I
Asia around
also
25,000 years
like
ago.
how you send me like a face map where okay it shows
All
you
the
all
Eastern
the Eastern
Europeans, yeah.
Europeans, so you could, and you told me, oh, look to see if I can find Lithuania. I think I almost kind of had it.
Yeah,
I thought that was interesting.
You had like in between, I think 2 or 3, and one of them was Lithuanian.
Yeah, and I think that is so cool, kind of science in a
Mm.
way. I wish that was the video.
And spread across Europe in various waves, with the expansion of the first farmers a key event in this. Now, haplogroup U is another relatively common haplogroup, mitochondrial haplogroup in this part of Europe, at around 10 to 15%, with subclads such as U5, particularly common variations of U. In general, haplogroup U is one of the oldest maternal lineages in Europe, dating back to around 45,000 years ago. It is strongly associated with Ice Age hunter-gatherers and was one of the dominant maternal haplogroups in pre-Neolithic Europe. Other mitochondrial haplogroups in Southeast Europe worth noting are
Can I
J
see
at
his
between 8 and
comments? You
12%,
could play him,
T
but I
at the
want to see
same
his
general
comments.
level, and K around 5 to 10%.
I want to see the map though.
But what about Eastern and Northeastern Europe? Well, the most common Y-DNA haplogroup
There
in
you
Eastern
go.
Europe is R1A, found in around 30 to 6% of the male population, with this haplogroup extremely high in countries like Poland, for example. It was dominant on the Eurasian steppe amongst the Proto-Indo-European speakers and was high in people
Explain
who
to
belonged
me.
to ancient
I
cultures
don't
such as the
listen.
Corded Ware people, who were again linked to the Indo-European migrations from the steppe, in part at least. One common subclad of R1A found in Eastern Europe today is R1A
Hello.
M458, as this map shows. Another Y-DNA
There's a
haplogroup
quiz
worth
after.
mentioning in
Watch the
relation to
video.
Eastern Europe is
I got a copy
I2A1,
from you.
but this is
I
higher
don't
in the
understand
southeast of Europe,
anything.
as noted earlier. If we look more to the northeast of
I
Europe,
just
though,
I
the
honestly
genetic
want to
mix of
see what Lithuania has in common with what on the map what it look like. That's it.
who you guys look like? I'll tell you who you
Yeah.
look like.
changes
Latvia.
slightly. In this region,
Done.
a very common Y-DNA haplogroup is M1C, which is high in the Baltic states, as
You
well as in
see?
places like Finland and amongst the Sami people to the north. This haplogroup is largely associated with Uralic-speaking populations in general, such as the Finns, the Estonians, the Sami, and different peoples of Russia, and it reflects a Siberian ancestral component to a large degree. What about the maternal side, though?
Where's the
Well, once
lips?
again, subclads of H are one of the most common mitochondrial haplogroups in Eastern Europe, including H1, H3, and H5. Variations of U are also worth mentioning again, though, with
Did you
U5
find your
particularly high
family through
more in
this?
northeastern Europe, in parts of Finland, and amongst the Sami people. Another
don't
two
see your
closely
family.
related mitochondrial haplogroups that are high amongst the Sami are HV0 and V, which are closely related themselves and are often hard to separate. The mitochondrial haplogroup J is also quite high in different parts of
Every
Eastern
time I
Europe,
see a new
as this map
map, I
shows.
try to see if I find Lithuania.
The origins of this haplogroup are thought to be in West Asia, around 45,000 years ago. Its spread across Europe is particularly associated with Neolithic farming expansions, but other episodes also played a role. Now, what about the genetics of Northern Europe and Scandinavia? Well, I1 is the most common Y-DNA haplogroup
Wow,
in
Lithuania's
Scandinavia,
like
and it's quite common in
high,
parts of
like
Northern
Yeah,
Europe
it's
as
high.
well.
up in the
It is a
cold.
subclad of
cold.
the broader haplogroup I, which dates back to European Ice Age hunter-gatherers.
Honestly, I feel
and
like every
probably
time I see a
originated
map,
in
it's like
Europe
it's
itself. I1 has been a common Scandinavian haplogroup for a long time, and was the most common Y-DNA haplogroup amongst the Vikings, for example. R1b is another pretty common Y-DNA haplogroup in this region. The subclad R1b-U106 is especially high amongst Germanic peoples, and this became much more common in large parts of England after the Anglo-Saxon migrations. R1a is also found across this region to a lesser degree, but still worth mentioning. On the maternal side, H is once again the most common mitochondrial haplogroup, particularly H1 and H3, with U5 also found at good levels again. If we turn our attention to Western and Central Europe now, R1b is by far the most common Y-DNA haplogroup in this area.
He should at least
However,
create a
different subclasses
legend.
of R1b speak
Yeah.
to different peoples. R1b DF27 is very high in large parts of the Iberian Peninsula, for example, with it reaching over 60% in parts of Spain. R1b U152, on the other hand, is much higher in parts of France and northern Italy, as you can see in this map. And if we look at R1b L21, this subclad is much higher in Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Brittany and France, and in western parts of England such as Cornwall. In other words, this subclad is high amongst the Atlantic Celtic peoples, but is also
Him,
pretty high in places
where
like
does he
Iceland,
look like he's from?
Irish.
which is quite interesting.
Why?
We
Because
have
he
previously
has
noted
red hair.
R1BU106 as well in relation
That
to
was the
Germanic
accent.
peoples and Germanic ancestry. So obviously Western Europe is dominated by R1b, and R1b is common in large parts of Central Europe as well. But R1a is also worth mentioning when it comes to Central Europe, as it is the most common Y-DNA haplogroup in the Czech Republic, for instance. On the maternal side, H is once again the most common
You were like
mitochondrial
in the
haplogroup
purple, the
in these
dark, dark,
regions of
dark purple,
Western and
no?
Central
In this map, yeah, in the purple.
Europe, with low levels of U, J, T, and K also found amongst others. But what about the genetics of Southern Europe, particularly countries like Italy, the amazing Italy? Well, as we noted earlier, R1b is quite common in parts of Italy, particularly the subclad R1BU152, which is common in the region just south of the Alps. J2 is another very common Y-DNA haplogroup in Italy, as this map shows, which is a notable Mediterranean genetic marker in general, particularly the Eastern Med. In a similar vein, EV13 is also pretty high in parts of Italy and the Mediterranean zone in general. I2A1 is also worth mentioning, particularly when it comes to the Italian island of Sardinia, as this is the most common Y-DNA marker among Sardinian men. In relation to different parts of Italy as well, the Y-DNA haplogroup G is also important to note, as it's relatively high in Sardinia and other parts of Italy, particularly branches of G2A. On the maternal side, Italy is similar to most other parts of Europe, with H the most common mitochondrial haplogroup, followed by the likes of U, J, T, and K, amongst others. What can we say about European genetic markers overall then? Well, R1b is the most common Y-DNA marker in Europe
You
as a
didn't
whole,
touch UK?
and H is the most common mitochondrial haplogroup on the continent. There is a reasonable amount of variation though, and this table shows a general breakdown per region. Please let me know
Eastern Europe. Oh. Why is Lithuania not on
your
this list?
haplogroups in the comments below if you know them, and if you live in Europe or have European ancestry,
uh,
please let me know whereabouts.
I think you guys would be more in
And why
almost
is
central,
okay? So I think in Eastern Europe,
central
okay, you
Europe.
see where he says Eastern Europe, Balkans. I think he meant Baltics, cause Southern Europe,
No,
yeah, cause
how do you know that he wrote this himself?
look in the Southern Europe, he also has Balkans.
So we just forget the Baltics.
No, in the Eastern Europe, there's Baltics.
Yeah, but he said Balkans.
I think it's a typo.
How?
Because Eastern Europe have. Oh
It does
wait,
not
wait, no,
exist. I
Baltics
think
is
it's
by.
look Central
No,
Europe. You
Baltics
see
is
the
by Northern Europe.
Poland. So Poland is part of Central Europe and not Eastern.
Yeah, and Northern Europe is Baltics. That never mind. So I guess it's not a typo.
You guys are not north. Oh no, go back to the y'all. You're in the East. I don't like this identity change you guys try to do every time. You guys are not Northern Europe.
Now, I should note that this video was obviously from a very high
But maybe
level
you guys
perspective,
can be
and there are
related to
lots of
Northern
detail
Europe.
and nuance.
Yeah, this was a very high level. Honestly,
Go to the comments. Oh, he may see this.
I
Wow.
felt that the idea of a video was interesting, but execution was definitely not a noob friendly.
No.
Great video as always. Lovely Europe.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm very sophisticated.
Oh, Scottish accent, I guess, not Irish.
Scottish. I was thinking he was Scottish too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. As I said, the title was interesting. The subject is interesting, but the execution.
It was for the people who understood.
Yeah. It
these
wasn't
labels.
for us noobs. It was for people in the
Yeah.
in this area of expertise. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Guys, let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Join the Discord, and as always, share as much kindness as possible.